Thomas the Tank Engine Book Club. Buzz Buzz. Buzz Buzz. Boko reached the big station and arranged his trucks. Then he went to the shed and asked politely if he could come in. Duck was not pleased to see a diesel, but presently, when he found that Boko knew Ed Wood, he became more friendly, and by the time Boko had told him about Bill and Ben, they were laughing together like old friends. Have they ever played tricks on you? Asked Boko. Goodness me, yes, chuckled Duck. Ed Wood is the only one who can keep them in order. You know, went on Duck, I sometimes call them the bees. A good name, chuckled Boko. They're terrors when they start buzzing around. Just then James bustled in. What's that, Duck? Are you terrified of bees? They're only insects after all, so don't let that box diesel tell you different. His name is Boko and he didn't we? I wouldn't care, interrupted James. If hundreds were swarming around, I'd just blow smoke and make them buzz off. Buzz, 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 retorted Duck. James retired into a huff. James was to pull the express next morning, and when Duck brought his coaches, the platform was crowded. Mind your backs, mind your backs. Two porters were taking a loaded trolley to the front van. Fred drove while Bird walked behind. Careful, Fred, careful, warned Bird, but Fred was in a hurry and didn't listen. Suddenly an old lady appeared in front. Fred stopped dead, but the luggage slid forward and burst the lid of a large white wooden box. Some bees flew out, and just as James came backing down, they began to explore the station. Someone shouted a warning. The platform cleared like magic. The bees were too sleepy to be cross. They found the empty station cold. James's fireman was trying to couple the train. They buzzed round him hopefully. They wanted him to mend their hive. Then they could go back to be warm again. But the fireman didn't understand. He thought they would sting him. He gave a yell, ran back to the cab and crouched with his jacket over his head. The driver didn't understand either. He swirled the bees with a shovel. The bees, disappointed, turned their attention to James. James's boiler was nice and warm. The bees swarmed round it happily. Buzz off, he hissed. He made smoke, but the wind blew it away, and the bees stayed. At last, one settled on his hot smoke box. It burnt its feet. The bee thought James had stung it on purpose. It stung James back right on the nose. Eee! Whistled James. He had had enough. So had his driver and fireman. They started without waiting for the guard's whistle. They didn't know till too late that they've left their train behind. In the end, it was Boko who was to pull the express. He was worried at first about leaving his trucks, but Duck promised to look after them, and so it was arranged. He managed to grin back some of the lost time, and the Far Controller was pleased with him. No one seemed to notice when James came back to the shed. They were talking about a new kind of beehive on wheels. It was red, they said. Then they all said buzz, 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 and laughed a lot. James thought that for big mainline engines, they were being very silly. Wrong road. Thomas's branch line is important, and so is Ed Wood's. They both bring about invaluable traffic, but their track and bridges are not so strong for those on the main. That is why the Far Controller does not allow the heavier mainline engines such as Gordon and Henry to run on them. If, however, you had heard Gordon talking to Ed Wood a short while ago, you would have thought that the Far Controller had forbidden him to run on branch lines for quite another reason. It's not fair, grumbled Gordon. What isn't fair? Asked Ed Wood. Letting branch line diesels pull main line trains. Never mind, Gordon. I'm sure Boko will let you pull his truck sometimes. That would make it quite fair. Gordon spluttered furiously. I won't pull Boko's dirty trucks. I won't run on branch lines. Why not? It would be a nice change. The Fat Controller would never approve, said Gordon loftily. Branch lines are vulgar. He puffed away in an undignified manner. Edward chuckled and followed him to the station. Gordon, his driver, and his fireman all say it was the lady's fault. She wore a green floppy hat and she was saying goodbye to a friend sitting in the coach near the guard's van. It was almost time to start. The fireman looked back. He was new to the job. He couldn't see the guard, but he didn't see something green waving. He thought it was the flag. Right away, mate, he called, but the guard had not waved his flag. When Gordon started, he left some luggage, several indignant passengers, and the guard all standing on the platform. Every evening, 2 fast trains leave the big station within 5 minutes. The 6:25 is Gordon's for the main line. Edwards at 6:30 runs along the branch. By the time Gordon had been brought back, Edward's train was overdue. You've missed your path, Gordon, said the Fat Controller crossly. Now we must clear Edward's train before you can start. This should have put everything right with the least possible trouble. But control at the big station made things worse. They forgot to warn the signalman at Edwards Junction about the change of plan. It was dark by the time the trains reached the junction, and you can guess what happened. Edward went through on the main while Gordon was switched to the branch. It took the Fat Controller several hours to sort out the triangle, and passively the passengers in the end. Gordon was left with his fire dawn, cold and cross, on one of Edward's sidings. Bill and Ben peeped into the yard. Next morning, they wondered if Boko had brought them some trucks. There were no trucks, but they didn't mind that. Teasing Gordon they thought would be much fun. What's that? Asked Bill loudly. Shh, whispered Ben. It's Gordon. It looks like Gordon, but it can't be. Gordon never comes on branch lines. He thinks them vulgar. Gordon pretended he hadn't heard. If it isn't Gordon, said Ben, it's just a pile of old iron, which we better take to the scrap yard. No, Bill, this lot's useless for scrap. We'll take it to the harbor and dump it in the sea. Gordon was alarmed. I am Gordon. Stop, stop. The twins paid no attention. Gordon shut his eyes and prepared for the worst. The twins argued loudly and long. Bill favored the scrapyard, while Ben said that cutting up in such places was something cruel. It would be kinder, he argued, to give these remains a quick end in the sea. Besides, he went on, they would make a lovely splash. Gordon could not view either proposition with any assumption. Up to that the time he had disapproved of diesels. They were, he conceded, ugly, smelly, and noisy. But when he opened his eyes and saw Boko coming to the yard, he thought him the most beautiful sight he had ever seen. Boko, my dear engine, he gasped, save me. Boko quickly sized up the situation and sent Bill and Ben about their business. They were cheeky at first, but Boko threatened to take the trucks of coal he had brought for them. That made them behaved ones. Gordon thought he was wonderful. Those little demons, he said, how did you do it? Oh, well, said Boko, it's just an act. Gordon thinks to his day that Boko saved his life, but we know the twins were only teasing, don't we? The end.